All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is UITK Radio, ushering in the kingdom here in the 7th month, 18th day, year 2016. And we hope you are having a blessed summer, because we are blessed because you are listening to us tonight. We got a very special show. We'd like to bring some excellent, very stupendous, educated guests on the show. That's what we got here tonight, because let me tell you about this brother. He has got a story for you. And he is a man of God, a brother in Christ. You are going to be so encouraged by his story and really blessed by what he's doing now. So we're going to get to this brother in about another 10 minutes or so. But as you know, here on Usher in the Kingdom, we like to open up with a little social commentary in the beginning. But before I go ahead and do that, my name is Tony Mitchell here on UITK. And this is Usher in the Kingdom Radio for Table Talk with Michelle and Andrea. Now sitting right across from me, the brother working the ones and twos. Let's give him a round hand clap and fingers out the brother Robert 222 man. How you doing, man?
Man, it's very good to see you, Tony.
How you doing, my man?
Oh, it's my pleasure indeed to be here, man.
All right.
It's another blessed day. God has woken me up today, gave me the strength to give him reasons to say thank you. And I have to say thank you for everything. I'm able to walk around. I know my name. You know, I can make decisions. I have a job. I have a roof over my head. My wife still feeds me at night. My kids still call me daddy.
Okay.
Nobody seems to be looking for me that I know.
Oh, all right.
If they are, I just kind of stay out of their way, you know. May cause them no strife.
There you go. There you go, man.
But it's good to be here as always. And Tony, it's a pleasure to see you.
Pleasure to see
when I
you,
see you, my day just brightens up.
Oh, I try to do that sometimes.
I know it's gonna be all right. That's why you saying this old lady over there.
That's right.
Kind of mushy today.
There you go. That's right. He said it. The lady said it next to me. Now you may call her Shell, or you may call her Shelly, or you may call her Lele, or you may call her Miss Shelley. But ladies and gentlemen, the dynamic diva that she is in the house. Hand claps and finger snaps for Michelle Gilliard.
Wonderful.
How you doing there, lady Michelle?
I'm great. I am blessed and highly favored.
What's blessed and highly flavored? All right, that's right.
It's a wonderful day today.
Yes, it is. You enjoy this heat, this hot weather?
Yeah, any day above ground is a good day.
That's
And hot weather is okay, because I'm above ground. I'm not underneath.
okay. All right. That's a blessing right there. Well, it's good to see you. Now,
Good to see you guys too.
Amen. Now, just to let you know, Dr. Dre is on her way, so we'll be talking to her pretty soon. I'm sure she wants to dig in. Now, the brother we got sitting over here, well, to the left of me, like I said, we're going to talk to him in about 10 minutes, because once we get him to talking and put him on the mic, he's going to blow everything up with his testimony. But just to let you know, this man is a very powerful man. His name is Andrew Ross. Now, we're going to talk to him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is UITK Radio coming back at you live, and like I said, we got a brother in-house here who's going to educate us.
Educate us.
That's right, because don't you know, this brother, he's got 2 master's degrees, and he's working on his doctorate as we speak.
As we speak.
As we speak.
That's what he's doing.
That's right.
Wow, I saw him making notes over there.
Oh, yeah. He looks very professorial, doesn't he? That's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got a brother here. He is a certified personal trainer.
Okay.
He is also a motivational speaker.
Wow.
He mentors youth. I mean, and that's just a short list right there. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we got in the house hand claps and finger snaps. Let's give our brother Andrew Ross. How you doing there, my man?
Blessed and highly favored.
Yes, you are. Blessed and highly favored, my brother. We're so glad to have you here on the show today. We want to jump right in and talk to you a little bit. I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio so everyone can know a little bit about you. Now, brother Andrew Ross, he's also an author of a book called 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out. And we're going to ask him about that, how he found his way out. But brother Andrew Ross knows what it means to be a poor and homeless young adult, a high school dropout, a distributor and consumer of drugs, and a member of a gang. But through persistence and perseverance, Andrew has obtained and maintained quality employment and earned 2 master's degrees, as I mentioned. Now, being a biracial child of Irish and African American descent, Andrew didn't easily fit in during grade school and was often bullied, even in high school. Now, to escape the torment he faced in school, he began drinking alcohol and selling and using drugs. Now, searching for a social group he could belong to, he joined a gang and dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. Now, he remained active with gang involvement for years. Then, in 1990, Andrew was the victim of an assault and almost died. Now, he was hospitalized for 2 weeks and underwent brain surgery. Consider that. Now, when he had his daughter in 1994, Andrew began to examine life differently. Now, with the encouragement of his parents, he began taking night classes to earn his GED, which he earned in 1997. Now, 6 months after that, he receiving his GED, Andrew enrolled in the Metropolitan College of New York, where he majored in human studies. Now, he studied rigorously and earned his bachelor's degree in 2004. Now, he utilized his degree immediately at Harbor House, which is a halfway house for adults who need services to combat substance abuse and mental illness. Andrew then moved on to Housing Works, another nonprofit agency that is committed to end the crises of homelessness for those with AIDS. Now, during his 3 years there, he studied emergency and disaster management and earned a master's degree in public administration in 2007. Since then, Andrew has been working on projects that he feels can bring change to the people and communities in which he interacts with on a day-to-day basis. Now, while working full-time, consulting part-time, and mentoring young adults, Andrew completed his second master's and MBA in general management in December of 2009 and is currently enrolled at the University of Phoenix, where he is studying for his doctorate degree in organizational leadership and management. I gotta tell you, this brother's doing it. Andrew believes that education is the key and just recently got certified as a personal fitness trainer at the National Academy of Sports Medicine, NASM. He is proof positive that where there is a will, there is definitely a way. His message is simple. If there are no doors to open, create them. I like that. Just busting them down, right, my brother? And create your own path. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, hand clap, finger smack for brother Andrew. Big time rocks. My brother, I gotta say, we really appreciate your bio here. My man is very stupendous at what you've done. I gotta tell you, excellent stuff you got here, man. So, my brother, I mean, I read a lot of this here. I'm just going to pass you up to Lady Michelle Lay here. One thing I wanted to ask you, when was it that you would say in your journey through all of this that you came in contact or Christ touched your heart?
I would have to say in 2003. A mentor of mine, I was working at Housing Works, and a mentor of mine, Ron Abad, he was my supervisor at Housing Works, and he said, Andrew, I got a great church I need you to come to. And I said, cool, I'll come. He said, the Grace Men's Group there, come with us one Sunday and get the message. We got a great pastor. So I went one Sunday, and like they always said, they gave a great message. Pastor was there, and Pastor said, if anybody there haven't gave their life over to Christ yet, raise your hand. And I rose my hand, and he said, take a step out into the aisle and come up front. I put my hand down real quick and tried to sit down. My mentor said, no, you have to go up there now. And I went up there, and Pastor, he gave us a message, and Pastor said, one thing you guys have to remember, just because you get saved doesn't mean life stops. Things will continue to happen. They probably even come at you a little bit more. And I left there that Sunday, and that Tuesday, I went into a very deep depression.
Really?
Where I started drinking again.
Okay.
And contemplated suicide from that Tuesday all the way to that Sunday. And when that Sunday came around, I didn't understand what was happening. It was unresolved issues that I had inside of me that I needed to deal with. I thought I could say, I'll give my life over to Christ, and I am clean, floating 6 feet from the ground. I got this. I didn't have it. There was still some underlying issue that I had to deal with as a man. Okay. So I went through the whole suicidal ideation for 4 to 5 days. Then I just said, I have to stop this. And I stopped and went back to church and been going to CCC ever since.
Wow.
But I prayed to God, and I thank God for Pastor A.R. Bernard and the congregation and the men in the men's ministry for reaching out to me with open arms and saving my life. Because even though some people might look at that message that I received that Sunday like, listen, I'm not giving my life over to Christ, I'm going to die afterwards. It's one of those things that you have to, God's going to take you through different emotions and pull you out of certain situations in order to bring you at where He wants you to be.
Wow.
And sometimes it can be what I went through. Because at that time, during those days, I contemplated jumping in front of a truck, jumping off the bridge.
Wow.
By the grace of God, something came and said, Andrew, no, you're worth more than that.
Okay.
And I've been in CCC ever since. So, by the grace of God.
So Andrew, how long, when you were working as a sponsor, were you away from the substances that you got back into at that time?
So this is something that's helping me grow. So I was away from it for 6 years.
For 6 years?
For 6 years. I was clean 6 years when that happened.
So do you have an idea of what was the trigger?
The trigger was unresolved issues. I went through a lot of physical and sexual abuse as a kid. So there was there was this anger stuff I held me for so many years, and I didn't know how to express it all. It was too shameful to express it to anybody because I thought that would make me less of a man.
Right.
So I held on to that, and they said you're only as sick as your secrets.
Absolutely.
And I would just hold on to that and just engage into unhealthy behavior during those 6 years, like having sex with unprotected with women who were HIV positive.
Okay.
Because I didn't care about myself.
So you were still acting out per se.
Dry drunk.
Dry drunk.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a close enough relationship with the sponsor that you can.
Well, I didn't really I didn't really see that as a priority.
Oh.
So I said, let me go to the meetings. I'm looking good, got some good clothes on, doing the damn thing. Got this in my hand right
So
here.
you what they call 13 step.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting, because I'm an old product from St. Mark's.
Okay, all right.
In the city.
Right.
Yeah, but right around the corner they opened a bar called 13 Step.
All right.
Wow.
And for you guys who don't know the 13 step, those are these guys who come in and they do the first and second step and go right into the 13th step, which is again any newcomer that comes in and don't know what's going on and take them underneath their wing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mostly women.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that you know in your heart that you're doing wrong, and you know one day you're gonna crash,
Right.
but you don't know what day that's gonna be. And that particular the day I did crash was so devastating. I actually was walking around on in the city on 14th Street, Union Square, trying to get into a detox, but I couldn't get into a detox because I had private insurance.
Right.
And they only accept Medicaid.
Gotcha.
And I was like, wow, and feet was swollen, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, man. So you pick up right where you left off at.
Exactly.
But it's very interesting because I said, you know what, Andrew, buckle down. You have a testimony, you have a story you need to talk about. And I wrote the book, 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out. Because, like Pastor said, life is about balance.
Yes.
And I was just dealing with one aspect of my life, which was the physical. I didn't pay attention to the spiritual, the family, the social, the finances. I was doing the education, but I was lacking in certain areas.
Okay.
But there was areas in my life that affected me when I was younger because of the abuse from my father and people inside the home. So I wrote 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out, in order to spark that conversation with people. Because when I first came up with the book, 2 people said, Andrew, I wouldn't do that if I was you. I wouldn't put your story out there.
Really?
And I'm like, why? He said, because they're going to look at you differently. And I think that right there, a light bulb came off in my head. I said, it's not about me. It's about helping somebody else.
Right.
And what the stories in this book do is it sparks conversation about issues that are going on today, and also affects the individual who's reading it as well too, because my whole business is inside this book.
Okay. When did you write this book?
This is 2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah, 2012. But everything's in there from the time of when I was getting high in my apartment, where I was hallucinating. I seen spirits that I would take a razor blade and stick it up my nose, and just dig things out, and just There was so much blood in my apartment. My mother would come in and she'd be like, what's going on? Oh my God. But that was the hallucination from the drug. But it also talks about a point in my life when I didn't believe in God. Because of so much stuff that was happening to me. So I have a lot of the satanic ritual. I was part of a cult when I was younger. And that also got me locked up during time for what I had done. So I had a cult, I had a satanic Bible, we was praying to Satan, we had 666, and it was crazy. I was able to tap into a different spiritual realm that a lot of people just deny today. Say, you're so sick of the devil. There is the devil. Very sophisticated at that. But to be able to find my way out and start doing some work on myself allowed me to uncover some stuff in order to heal as a man.
Would you say that? I hear all that for what you're saying, so I want to take you back to the beginning. You said you suffered a lot of sexual abuse in your teenage, you were a teenager in your household. So would you say that you were acting out, you were selling drugs? At what age did you start doing drugs?
14.
14, so you were selling drugs, doing drugs. And at 19, 20, from 14 to 19, 20, you were still in the same household?
Off and on, because I would run away, stay someplace, come back, and run away again, stay someplace, come back, and it wasn't steady. And then I made an attempt at the age of 18 to move to the Bronx.
So did your mom know what was going on in the house?
She knew, but she was too scared of my dad to say anything. And may my dad rest in peace. He's been gone for 8 years, but it's evident of the damage that he done because now my mother's living in a squatter's house and she's active. And she calls me sometime and she says, Andrew, listen, I need money, and I know what the money's for, and I'm not trying to enable her. I said, Ma, I love you from a distance. And she's sick, and her sight is going, and it hurts. This is the evidence and the stuff that went on with my dad. And she wasn't allowed to have friends. Inside the book, it talks about when we used to go to bed at nighttime, my dad used to board up the house.
But it's only just you?
No, it's me, my sister, and then my brother.
So my thing is, do you think you heard that first sermon that Pastor Bernard speak? And everyone is able to say, when you come to church and it's that call is there. From hearing some of what you're saying from Robert and God was always there with you. He was always there. And he was somehow leading you still. Even though you hadn't accepted him yet, he was still, would you say he was still guiding and leading you in your path?
Yeah, I mean,
he had to be.
Yeah. You know, I honestly believe that, sometimes when you're going through something, you can't really see the big picture, the struggle and everything like that. But I know God has a plan for my life. Even though I decided to go to the other end, I knew He had a plan for my life. I knew He created me for a purpose and a reason. And it makes it easier today to get a better understanding of when things start happening around me as being part of my purpose and my plan. God is always, I didn't believe it in the beginning because of all the bad things that were happening to me when I was younger.
But sometimes when God steps in, right, you made a decision. When would you say you made that decision to stop doing drugs, selling drugs, and really take heed to what was going on with you?
I would have to say
Do like a self-examination,
Let's say 2003. When I came to CCC, yeah, all the manipulation and stuff like that, and all the acting out of my anger about all the stuff that happened to me and my issues from the past and stuff like that. I would have to say about that.
So at that point, that's when you heard that message.
Yes.
So that would you say that God, well, we know we touched you that day, and moving forward that day, took you into rehab?
Yeah, it took me into rehab. Very interesting. It took me into rehab, and another part of the story, right? Another part of the story, because it's one of those things as if you're not working on something, something's working on you. Writing this book and having to get really honest with some of these issues. The past 11 years, or the past 10 years, I still continue to focus on one thing and not really balance out my life, which caused me to go to the doctors one day, and they prescribed me some pain medication. And what happened during that time, they gave me a bottle of pain medication, and overdosed. And it's difficult for me to talk about because it's one of those things that, during that time, that being clean and stuff like that, you're trying to rationalize inside your head, you still got to clean, you still got to, what do you don't? Something happened. Like, once again, wasn't working on something was working on you, and I overdosed. My significant other found me, and she brought me to the hospital, and I almost died.
And coming out of that?
Coming out of that, I'm more diligent with working on sponsorship, the meetings, step work, the balanced life thing, more church, more physical, more mental. Sad to say that had to happen for me to have a bigger outlook on life, on what I need to do. Like, I can't skate through this thing just like trying to get by, because I got a degrees all over my wall is not going to keep me clean. I need to do some work, and I need to be aggressive with this work, because this thing is no joke. By the grace of God, my sponsor, ICB, they found me. They picked me up from the house. They took me to the different programs to get my stuff together. But it was one of those things. During the 11th year, I created a box for myself that I had this. I let people know the impression that I ain't need nothing from nobody, and nobody checked on me. So when they found me, there was blood all over the sheets. I was using 50% of my lungs because of all the stuff that I was doing. I hadn't eaten for a whole month.
So would it be safe to say that during this whole time, you were holding on to reservations? When I say reservations, meaning that, yes, God, I know you're there, but I have my own solutions. My own solutions may be, well, I'm going to get high, I'm going to try these pills, I'm going to get sex with these girls. These are my self-fixed solutions. And it was when you almost died, you said to yourself, my solution doesn't work. And then at that point, God said, okay, I'm going to allow you to do yourself if that's what you want to do. But when you turn your life over to God and say, God, help me, that's when we show His greatness in your life. Because that's what it's all about, for Him to show His greatness, for you to testify how great He is, not how great you are. So when all your reservations fell, and you could no longer depend on self to get out of a jam, you said, God, I need your help. Totally, I can't do this. I have no other solution. You're the only solution. When you did that, that's when you sent the angels. Because angels were there all the time. But that's when you let us up and go.
I had a revelation. Very interesting. It was one night when I was in the house. I was so high that I was going to bed with two butcher knives because the hallucination was crazy, and I brought some knives in my house, and I dozed off. I really believe that I died and came back because when I dozed off, God showed me a revelation through my bedroom window. And it was a revelation of you couldn't see me, but you could see my family trying to get inside the door. The door was open like this, and they kept peeking in and saying, he's dead. And right then and there, I actually woke up and thought I was dead. And from that point on, I called my sponsor. And I said, listen, man, I got to do this again.
Oh, so you had stopped and started back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, that's very interesting. So you're saying you stopped before, but you didn't stop because you surrendered everything to God.
Right.
You stopped because you thought you could do it on your own.
Yeah, I stopped and thought I could use it as an extra value meal and just pick out what I wanted. Like, I don't want number 5. I'll take number 2. I'll keep number 3. No, I don't want to get rid of this, but...
So now, when you do that, if you had to speak to somebody, when you do that, you haven't surrendered it to God, but when you did that night, and you had that revelation through your window, that's when you surrendered and said, this is it.
Yeah.
And see, I was taken back because I thought, so that clarified that. When you did that and you surrendered it to God, you didn't go back to it.
Right.
Because
I surrendered.
you surrendered.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand the significance between saying, oh, I can stop, I can do this on like number 1, number 2 today, or I'm going to take this value in, opposed to when you surrender everything to Christ, then you give him a chance to step in. But when you want to still act like you got it under control, he can't step in because he gives us a choice.
Yes.
He always gives us a choice. We can have door number 1 or door number 2. So when you say, yes, significant other, I want to go back. Are you married?
I am not married yet.
So you have a significant
I
other.
do, yeah, and it's young. It was part of CCC. We knew each other for 10 years, but she's seen. She read my book, and she tried to stay away from me for a whole year. I think it's funny now, but she's been through the wrenches. Like she's seen it, man.
The rebirth.
She's seen the rebirth. She was looking at me today. She was like, I'm just staring at you because I know you. She said, even when I was in the hospital and I overdosed, I found some way to try to get my website out, trying to market. But she's been there. She's praying. She's on top of me with the steps and stuff like that. And it's one of those things that, because let me tell you, when you're in recovery, sometimes I speak about myself. We try to keep a secret. We don't want other people to know that we're in recovery, so we keep things selective. Like if I meet somebody who drinks wine, back in the days when I was in recovery, it's like, okay, you drink wine, go drink in the bathroom, make sure you wash your mouth out, come back and see me. I'm not in recovery, I just don't drink. I'm not a drinker. But to be honest and surrender and be honest with myself about what I struggle with and what I'm going through allows me to develop as a man of Christ, being Christ-like. And it's one of those, God is good.
Yes, all the time. See, when I listen to your journey, particularly, the one thing that the trigger, like Robert mentioned, the trigger that led you to all of this stuff was mainly how you grew up, right? You said you were abused when you were younger. Was there any abusive thing? Well, abusive things from your father's side, you say, or?
Yeah, my dad used to really like. My dad had hands twice as big as mine. He used to just. And anytime he was angry, he'd take it out on us. To the point where it's like everything, emotional, physical. Like when we go to bed, he used to take big wooden doors and block up the back doors. Never open the curtains. I mean, everything was isolated from us to the animals. We had 2 rabbits and a dog. Never changed the rabbit's cage, kept them caged up, and never walked the dog for 10 years. Kept them right in the cage. So there was a lot of things going on with him that he was struggling with that wound up coming out into the family. And it's evident right now that you can see inside my sister's life and the way she's living right now. and she's following this whole.
Which is what I want to get to, because it sounds like, because when the Bible talks about generational curses, and that's what it is, and specifically when it comes from the father, because and you're the son, and how fathers have an effect on the son. Now here's the father, because as a son you want the approval of your father, and that becomes a nightmare for a son when it seems that his father doesn't approve of him, when he's beating on him and abusing him all that time. So he never feels that he measures up to anything. It's like when, in the beginning, when I came to Christ, there's something about him when you really, like you say, you surrender to God. There's a part of you that you want to measure up to him. You measure up to what he expects. Okay, God has, when I came to Christ, God has a purpose for my life, and I think I got it. I'm going to try to figure this out. And whenever I would fall back, and not necessarily backslide, but whenever I know, and I sinned, I felt guilty. I said, oh man, I'm not measuring up. And that would really beat me up crazy until God said, come down. Come down. I still love you. And see, once I've heard that from him, I still love you, and I will help you through this. Because there are times which I find really, even as a Christian, I probably haven't gone through all the things that you've gone through, but I can still see, as Rob brought up earlier, again, see how the devil, like you said, through generational curses, the devil, like you said, I like what you said when you was talking about dealing with evil spirits and all that stuff. Like you said, they're very wise, they're very strategic. And when people don't know the enemy, his demonic forces, he has generals and captains, and he has certain demonic entities that are specifically he assigns to you based upon your call that God has on your life.
Exactly, that's right.
And they will stay there, and they will wait to the point that you are so weakened to get to you, to get to the fall. So even when you're in the point when you're trying to surrender, that enemy is always there to try to get you to go the other way, because he makes, see, one thing, especially if you're dealing with an addiction, they said there's little traces of it that's still in your mind, that's still there, that's even, if you would go to a brain surgeon, they can put those electrodes on you, so to speak, or microscope, whatever, I forgot the apparatus that they call it, and they can tell, even if they don't know exactly what you're addicted to, but they know that you're addicted to something, because it always shows up physically in your brain through chemical releases of endorphins and serotonin and all that other stuff. And that is the thing, Satan knows what to tempt you with his demons to get you, because you did surrender to Christ when you came to the altar. But that doesn't make that enemy go away. You say, oh, okay, well, you're going to get Christ out. Oh, okay. Because like you said, because if Pastor teaching, the Bible says, you can get rid of that demon, clean that house for a good while. But then, what it says, he comes back 7 times stronger. And that's what he does. You can sweep him out, so then he goes to levels, okay, let me get some reinforcements here.
The demon's even more evil.
Even more evil. And that whole thing. And I see how that played out through your journey. And the thing is, I'm so glad that you really stuck with Christ, and you understood the love of Christ in your life, and that's what helps you to surrender, that even all you're going through and all that you suffered, so to speak. See, and I've heard this from other people who've gone through certain things, addicts, whatever it is. It was the love of Christ that helped, because there are times, like you said, that you surrender, the enemy hits you, and the guilt is what will keep you there. Because that's what the enemy will make you feel, because even though I surrendered and I did this, oh my God, I'm not worthy of God. And you separate yourself from him because you figure, I can't pray to him. He's not going to hear me. He's way above me. Look what I've done.
Right.
Look what I've done. I've done the most vilest thing. And the enemy wants to get you caught up in all that guilt. But that's when God said, I don't care what you did. I love you. And that's the thing that brings me, and I hear that in your testimony, man. It's so powerful. It's a powerful thing.
I had a question. At what point did you realize, because you have people that have addiction and they want to say, oh, I just do this when this. Or they make excuses for when they drink or when they smoke. And would you say that's when someone's not taking, I want to say accountability, that they have an issue and they point it off to everything else except saying, look at me. What is the trigger point? And you could be siblings and have the same thing going on, but seen it through different lenses. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can have siblings like your sister. You said you're seeing patterns of what you're going through, and now you have to. If you didn't deal with that issue and you happen to have gotten married with the young lady that you're with, that would have affected because you wouldn't have come to terms with what you was going through, right?
Right.
So what would you say to someone that is dealing with something and they don't feel that they professing that they don't have an issue, but they really do have an issue. It might be a little issue, underlying issue, but how do you talk to someone like that to express to them or coming? Because I know a lot of people that have dealt with these things, they have different ways of reaching.
I mean,
Someone that's
right.
listening.
I mean, if you're going through it, look at the patterns in your life every time you use, or every time you drink. Why are you drinking? Why are you getting high? What kind of disruption is it making in your life? I mean, I don't know anybody that said, listen, I just drink because I like the taste of alcohol.
I know people that say,
right, and I tell them get a non-alcoholic beverage and get the same taste. Oh yeah, whatever.
I told them they got a problem and they just don't want to admit they got a problem.
So if you see a pattern, and it's one of those things, even my mother's life is extremely unmanageable. She's living in a squatter's house, but the most important thing for her is the cigarettes and the beer. That's not a problem for her. But if they do a reflection exactly how they're living and where they're living and their condition of their life then and there, then hopefully you'll say, listen, I don't want to do this no more. But when the pain outweighs the pleasure, as they say in the rooms, that's when people stop. A lot of people got a high tolerance of pain. And they want to keep going on and on and on.
People have to, the other thing is when God has a call on your life, like he did for you, he truly had a call for you. And the enemy had a call as well, because the enemy is to stop you from answering the call. So a lot of the things that you went through, even the abuse and by your father and the other things, dropping out of high school, selling drugs, and all this time, God was still giving you favor. He was still protecting you because you thought about killing yourself and then you changed your mind. Then you took an accidental overdose and you didn't die. You came out of that. So in all your endeavors, God was still walking in front of you.
Yes.
He wasn't allowing you to get that far that it can abort his plan. Satan can abort his plan for your life.
Yes.
What was what was I ask you? Being biracial, which I found very interesting. Your mother is
Irish white.
And your father is?
My father's black.
How was that for you? How did that affect you growing up being biracial? In what neighborhood did you grow up in?
For Rockaway, Queens.
For Rockaway, Queens?
Yeah, in New Haven.
In New Haven. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So the way that invited the bullying from school.
Okay.
And what happened with that is I would get bullied at school and then go home and be abused by my dad.
Wow.
So I had no outlet to it. Yeah. So it was one of those things that I was a cute little kid. I always had a little girl and stuff like that. But it was one of those things that I was a very shy person. So when people hear me speaking now and they see how I put it, said, "Shy, Andrew? No, I didn't do it." And I was only through the grace of God. It's one of those things that it just puts that spirit inside of you and just has you going. And it was a rough upbringing, man. And I know we don't have that much time, but to even talk more about the mental health stuff. During those 11 years or 10 years that I was clean, I self-diagnosed myself with depression and anxiety. Give me something so I can, so they had me on sleep medication all that time. And I knew it wasn't right. And I knew I had to deal with some stuff and surrender. I knew I had to do that. And today, I go to sleep like a baby. I drink green juice. I never thought I could get off of that, but the whole mental health stuff, there's too many people out there diagnosing themselves with this mental disorder. Like, listen, I'm super depressed right now. I got to go get something from my doctor. I have all this anxiety. I got to do this. I got to do that. But it's unresolved issues that you haven't surrendered yet. Because, you know, what's the worst that can, you know, I had to learn, so what's the worst that can happen when you surrender?
And not even that, it's, you have people out here that are dealing with such situations, and they can sit and say, oh, I had a beautiful childhood, but that's because sometimes you're too young, and that, you know, the mechanism in your brain, you experience this hurt and this abuse in your household. You might not have seen it as an abuse, but it was. And you grow up and not dealing with that, and you walking around with this, and then you self-medicating yourself, taking a drink, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm just piggybacking because like, when you mentioned the father, have you ever reconciled with your father before his death?
I did when they was laying him down in the ground.
Oh, gotcha.
That was, because they couldn't talk to my dad.
Oh, okay.
So when they was closing the casket, they was lowering him down in the casket, and the guy told me, he said, sir, he just called me out, the whole family, sir. I'm like, yeah, thank you. That's why I should go down and forgave him, man.
You know, I want to say something, something Michelle said, and something you said. When you said your mother is living in this situation, and when she asks you for money, you won't give it to her because you know what she wants. In other words, you are not enabled her. And I would say that in your earlier days, when you said they found you in the house and you were doing things to hurt yourself, you will be enabled.
Yes.
Because you were given shelter. You know,
Right.
you were given shelter, you were given food, you were given room.
I wasn't in her house when they found me. I was in a room.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, when they found me and I was all bloodied up and everything like that, from the hemorrhaging from the nose and everything like that, from doing all the drugs, they found me in there. So she would go in there and then she would run out. So
Right.
I would go ballistic.
Well, a lot of times when you have like a person in your family who's close to you and they're drinking or doing drugs, you'd be surprised, but the one closest to them will actually indirectly supporting them. Indirectly. They don't even know it. He says, okay, if you're going to do this, do it at home. If you're going to do this, do it on this night, or do it over here. And although you don't like it, you say, well, if I don't do this, they're going to go out and hurt themselves. So do it here, do it there, or I'll just let this pass by and I'll wait 2 days later when it's a better situation. And that goes on for a very long time. And what happens is not only does a sick person get sick, but the persons around them get sick. Because now their behavior becomes a normal behavior. You know, it's normal. This is what I come to expect. And so this is how they are. We develop conversations and excuses. Oh, so-and-so is not feeling well. So-and-so, or we're denied whatever the truth is about so-and-so. Because we have adopted the enable conversation, you know? So I can understand what you're saying there. And I just want to say one thing about my father, because I can identify with you and your situation, having a rough relationship with your dad. When my dad, I had to, when I got to the point that I was able to approach my dad one year, and, you know, I was in 3 or 4 years into what you would term to be recovery. And I went to the Carolinas because my dad didn't hug, right? He didn't hug. He was a military guy, you know, everything was, you know, my way or the highway. So one year I was down there, we were going to go to church, it was out in the yard. So I went and grabbed him, he was expecting a handshake, and I just embraced him and hugged him, right? So we never hugged, right? So he didn't know what was up. And so he's like wrestling, you know, like, okay, let me go now, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you go. I want you to know, and I love you. Now, after that, because he was living in North Carolina, and the next year I went down, he started introducing me to everybody he knew as his son, as if I just fell off the planet. Or he came onto the planet. He said, oh, I want you to meet my son. I want you to meet my son. I want you to meet my son. You know, we'll be in a house and he's like, he's ready to go somewhere and he'll stop. Want to come with me? And I'm watching a movie like, okay, if you want me to, you know. But, you know, it was like a revelation for him because one day we had went fishing It was him and another relative. And I was talking to the other relative about my relationship with my dad and explaining to the relative while my father was driving that I understood where my father came from. I understood why he did what he had, why he did what he did. And I understood the behavior because I had the same behavior. And so the relative was like, wow, this is like dynamic. You're sitting here talking about your father to me, but in a way, not disrespecting your father, but being very open, you know. So coming through similar situations that you have come through, I learned how to be open and to express, you know, to grow spiritually in that level that I can talk about those things. And no, it's not a secret. It's a growth, a place of growth. Because I have children, and they know they can't bring anything in my presence of that nature and expect it to slide, because I will question it and you know, be right on it. And my children come to me and they ask me questions along those lines. Dad, what do you think of it? And I'm very honest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. UITK Radio, ushering in the kingdom. And we're in that part of the show. We're going to wrap it up pretty soon. We got another 15 minutes with our brother Andrew Ross here. Hand claps and finger snaps on so far. Until we're getting educated and enlightened what he has to say. So, brother Andrew, what I wanted to ask you about, you know, get to the points about identity crisis. Finding your identity and what you're doing now, how you survive, and like, and what your book, the title of your book, 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out. So talk to me, my brother, about who you are now, your victories that led to who you are right now, and who you say, well, basically, who's Andrew Ross? What is your identity right now? Now that you've come to Christ, of course, you find that identity in Christ. And of course, I'm sure the identity struggle when dealing with the abuse from your father, that sort of thing. And I think they would send any young man into, okay, who am I, what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to be, because a young male child finds his identity in his father, in a relationship with his father. And that can send a young brother on a tizzy, I'm sure, which you know, psychologists and the field always talks about. But quickly, before you get into that, how was the treatment of your father to your mother? Did he abuse her as well? So there's a lot of abuse going across the board.
Oh yeah, we witnessed, it's very interesting, we witnessed a lot of abuse that my dad placed upon my mother as far as, I think the biggest thing for her was emotional.
Emotional. Okay.
Because he didn't let her have no friends. She couldn't go to school, she couldn't go to work. The only thing she could do was go to the store and back. She couldn't even leave the house. So there was a lot of abuse on that angle as far as from him to her. So it was very interesting when he died. My mother went in the closet and got this wind-up doll and started winding up and watching it dance. And that was her way of going back to where she was first before he met her. So she stopped growing at like 16, 17.
Wow.
And then she decided to get into that little girl stage again, man. It was emotional, man. Because I see now, man, it's nothing. People say, Andrew, you look so much like your dad, and it bothers me sometimes.
Really?
It really, even when I look in the mirror, it bothers me. He taught me a lot about work ethics, but as far as family and stuff like that, he did so much damage to the family that, like, I don't want to see that aspect of it. Like that, so.
But that curse has been broken, so.
Yes, praise God. Praise God. Yeah. Then I go on this side right here, I'm like, you got it going on.
You got to bring in the curse. But tell us, okay, from that journey to now, who would you say Andrew Ross is now, and encourage those who's listening how they can also find their way out?
Well, I mean, you first have to, before anything, in order to find out who you are, you got to deal with whatever you're going through and the stuff that you're experiencing that are barriers that are preventing you from growing. And listen, I go home at nighttime. I go to in my office at home. I got a nice little office. I got so many degrees on the wall, man. I got a really nice home. It's not about materialistic things. It's not about education. It's about finding your way out and finding your relationship with God. If you could do that peace of mind right there is incredible. And I'm talking from I know what it feels from both sides of the street of not believing in God and trying to go with another power that's a lot lower, expecting different results, to having a relationship with God on a daily basis. I go into prayer. Me and my significant other, we pray, we read scripture, and go into church, man. It's just, I don't care how much money I got in my pocket, man. You could be rich and have a peace of mind. And that's the type of man Andrew is. My whole thing is I'm dedicating my life moving forward to empowering others and helping people get up.
Amen.
God has blessed me tremendously. I eat good food, I got a good roof over my head, drive a nice car. I mean, he's blessed me tremendously, but when I die, I want my prince to be left here, that he helped somebody. He laid out literature to help somebody. He's been through this, and he showed us how to find a way out.
Amen.
You said the main way through Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Man, you gotta get saved, man. You gotta repent. You gotta understand that the same spirit that God put inside his son Jesus Christ to raise him from the dead is the same exact spirit that's inside of us.
Yeah.
And would you say having mentors and support to people, surrounding yourself with those people to keep you, of course, hold you accountable to stay out? That's sort of
you have to change your whole circle. Just like Pastor said, you have to be careful who you tell what to, because you have to protect them and you at the same time. So your whole circle has to change. You have to get support and mentorship from people that are right where you want to go. And be able to say yay and nay. You can't be part of my life.
There you go.
And you sleep good at night.
I'm just talking.
Surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. I mean, you preached the sermon right there, brother. I'm ready to pass the plate.
I'm ready for it.
Who are some of the people you do the mentorship? Who are some of the people you do the mentorship with?
Well, I currently work right now with Goodwill, which is a nonprofit organization that helps individuals transform from welfare to work. So I do empowerment workshops with them. Probably a majority of them will listen to us tonight. You know,
Yes.
Hey,
Shout out to Goodwill.
Yes. And you know, I'm part of this nonprofit that took me aboard called Abraham Inheritance. That is a nonprofit organization, but right now we have prayer court. Prayers on the phone every Sunday at 9 o'clock, but we have young men from the age of 12 to 24 that can call in and state their issue. And we pray it out.
Is that something you can put out to the general public, mention that number, or that's something you can go to like a registration process?
And they're going to probably kill me right now. I don't have the number on me right now. But honestly,
is there a website or something?
You can go to the Facebook page of Abraham Inheritance. And the number is directly on there, and you know, I'm the main contact person for
Abraham Inheritance.
For that, and also for the conference call. But there's a high need for individuals to be prayed for out there. And you know, Pastor teaches us to use wisdom when we do this stuff, and not to be super religious, because the way he attracts the young people to the church is he mixes Christ with culture. So you can come in no matter what, as long as you're willing to accept God.
Now your book, you say you're working on your second book, right?
Yeah. The second book is going to definitely be,
Can you give us a little tidbit?
I can. You know, this one was before the book Nine Lives Finding a Way Out was before the doctoral program. The second one is going to be based more on taking things to a whole different level, as far as the different areas of life that people struggle with. So as far as the mental health stuff, we're going to start talking about some facts. Spirituality, family. But you know, my writings and the way that I write my literature is that I talk about things that other people just refuse to talk about. A lot of people just want to keep things surface, like get a nice suit, do your thing, get a nice car, you eating good, no problem, you looking good, you smelling good, no problem. No. What about that stuff you went through when you was a kid?
There you go.
That's causing you to beat the mess out your wife,
There you go.
or your wife beat the mess out the husband when you kick the dog.
Right.
So it's going to be powerful, man.
Wow.
And even though this came out in 2012, I just started really doing some promotion with it now. But it's touched a lot of lives. Before I came here, I got a message on Facebook. Somebody randomly just writing me and said, Andrew, I'm glad I'm your friend. Can I tell you something? I'm like, okay, what? She said, I have a story. Can I tell you, please? Can I tell you? I said, all right, tell me a story. So she said, well, I'm from Jamaica, and I moved to New York. But 5 years ago, which I'm still dealing with this issue, 5 years ago, my husband stabbed me multiple times, and after he did it, he killed himself.
Wow.
And that's the spirit.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. Just telling me that story so you can give some
Information.
words to start that healing process.
Right.
God is so good.
I mean, have you ever talked to kids who were involved with gangs, being that you were involved with gangs yourself?
Well, I mean, I used to work at a place called Inwood House, where I ran the Boys Men Leadership Academy in the South Bronx. But you know, I'm in constant contact with individuals on a daily basis, young kids from the age of 16 to maybe 24 that are currently in the Bloods, currently in the Crips, currently in Yetas, Latin Kings, and their whole thing is that, Andrew, listen, nobody loves me, man. I found one place that loves me, and that's the gang. And when they hear my story, when they hear my story, like, wow, some of them get really sophisticated and say, Andrew, you know what, if I've been through what you've been through, can I get what you have? No. You're not going to make it. Everybody's story is totally different. You can't say, listen, I'm going to go get into a brain operation, trying to kill my... Your story is your story. Your biggest thing right now is to find that self-love and deal with that hatred in your heart and towards whoever you might have towards you. When I was in the gang, I joined the gang and I hurt people. People hurt me because I was hurting inside.
There you go, and hurt people, hurt people.
There you go.
That's it. That's
That's the principle, and people don't understand that.
So it's a good. I mean, listen, and people know me from the street. I'll go anywhere and use wisdom. I go anywhere to carry that message of hope to the individual, man. People, Bloods and Crips could run up on me in the street and say, what's up, Andrew? What's up, Mr. Ross? And sit down and talk to me, and I'm cool.
And that's what some of these young men need. They need to hear other older men's stories. And that's what I was saying at the beginning. I mentor young girls. I have 250 young girls that I mentor. And they need to hear other men's stories and where we've been and where we came from, so that they can know that if I made it, you can make it too. But what road are you going to choose? You got to make a choice, and the choice that you make is going to determine your journey. So it was great. I don't know, we have closing remarks? We thank you. Andrea is not here, but her book.
That's her.
She got stuck at work, but I thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Very deep.
Yes.
And I learned some stuff today too.
Me too.
I appreciate you.
Yes, I also want to say I appreciate you. I thank you for your openness and your earnest ability, and I appreciate your book, that you were able to write it and put it on paper, and to be honest in your approach and not let somebody deter you from being to speaking the truth, because that part that you leave out is the part that somebody needs to hear, because people will only identify with something when they hear it from somebody else. But they said, oh, I wouldn't have said that if I didn't hear you say it first. But when you say it first, then they can confess it.
Yes.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate your earnestness, your honesty, your candor, my brother. You were straight up with it, and there's some deep stuff that you have there. Plenty of things. You've been through a myriad of things that God delivered you from.
Yes.
And you can speak to, definitely, I can see where God is using all of that to speak to a multitude of people.
Yes.
Just from, drug addiction, that's a group of people you can talk to. People who are dealing with demon entities, worshiping Satan, satanic rituals and all that stuff. You can speak to that as well. Because a lot of people dealing with that to deal with, on that other side, thinking that Satan is, they want to identify with Satan in order to bring them through life. Instead of knowing who they really want is Christ.
Yes, yes.
And of course, you could speak about Christ with that. You can speak to gang members, bring the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ to them. You can speak to people who are depressed. So many avenues you can speak into the lives of many people, my brother. God is really, you can say, man, if you were a twisted dude, you can say, man, my life is just cursed. But God, but it's so true when he says, I can take the bad things, the evil things, what the enemy meant for evil, I can turn around, use them for good. So the myriad of people whose lives you can speak into, man, I think that's such a great blessing, my man. And I'm really looking forward to some great things coming from it. I think we're going to hear a lot from you. Definitely want you to come back when you get that second book together. Did you have a title already set up for you? Okay, but you can't reveal it just yet. Okay, not a problem. So we definitely got to get you back on the show. Okay. But my brother, let's give it up for a man. Hand claps and fingers clap to brother Andrew Ross. Thank you. God bless you, my brother. Everybody, I know you've been blessed by my man here. I'm sure you've learned a great deal. And go out and get this book. Is it on Amazon? Or?
They can go to the website.
Give them the
You
website.
can go to www.shapedbygreatness.com.
Okay.
And you can order the book, and you get a signed copy delivered right to your doorstep. From me, okay? So get this book before it runs out. I only have 10,000 left.
Oh. Well, you heard it from my man. Everybody, get this book, 9 Lives, Finding a Way Out. I gotta say, this brother got 9 lives, because this cat, I think he got 25 lives with the blessings of ministry that he can speak to. That's like having 10 jobs. But amen for you, my brother. So ladies and gentlemen, please come back next week. Same back time, same back channel, here on UITK Radio. This is Michelle Lane. This is Brother Robert Too Much Tumor. And that's him. My name is Tony Mitchell. We'll be right back next week here on Ushering in the Kingdom. God bless. Thank you.
Good night.